director, and I don't have her full title right now, but I'm sure she will introduce herself. But she's the director for the strategy aspect of the African Union Commission. And I will hand over to her, who will lead us through the first part, and will be co-moderating today's sessions. And thank you so much to you all for your attention.
Thank you very much, my brother. And good morning, colleagues. Excellencies, allow me to stand in the established protocols and introduce myself as Boto Kibabonye Bayendi, Director in the Office of Strategic Planning and Delivery at the African Union Commission under the Cabinet of the Chairperson, and responsible for the implementation of Agenda 2063 and its alignment to the UN SDGs and other continental frameworks. This morning, Excellencies, we are gathered here during the Africa Day for a reflection of the theme Advancing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and Agenda 2063 through Transformative and Coordinated Actions. The theme mandates each one of us to be conscious of our role to coordinate better for desired transformation, to advance the two agendas, the UN SDG. For us to do that, we need to pick the lessons of what should this coordination look like. We dubbed the two agendas one framework as we went on implementing and picking up learnings. In the execution ground, it is no longer two agendas. It is one framework. The ambition for joint implementation has a solid political backing dating back to 2018, with the joint implementation commenced through the signing of a framework by the former AU Chairperson and the UN Secretary General. The framework provided critical platform for collaboration around 9 strategic areas, which include advocacy and awareness. The key: do Africans know their agenda? Do rich men of Africa know that they have to commit to this agenda? Do the youth know they have to commit to this agenda? Awareness is key, reflecting on the vision of an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, driven by its own citizens and representing a force in the global arena. I want us to take back to the engagement throughout the HLPF to say the youth in the room, with the demographic dividend being what it is, you are the drivers of Agenda 2063. And if we are talking joint implementation, it means that there is no SDGs without effective implementation of the two agendas. The joint implementation, as I talked to the 9 themes, one of them is data and statistics, integrating monitoring and evaluation, the aspect of human rights, the aspect of development. And the key question we had during the evaluation in 2024 of the first 10 years is, had we implemented the things that our 2 utmost political leaders committed to, where the results of the first 10 years of Agenda 2063 be where they are? And even more fresh is the results of the Africa Sustainable Development Report that we will be sharing. Had we been jointly implementing as per this framework, would we be where we are? We have just finished the biennial report of the AU. Had we been implementing the 9 things, would we be where we are in terms of critical results? The response to better coordination, we saw it, the UN DSG and the AU Deputy Chairperson, they responded by signing an MOU between the AUC and UNDP, among others, changing the execution environment to a college. And these are just a few of the many coordinating responses that we saw from our leadership. The partnership of UNECA, AUC, AFDB for the annual AFRDS and the authoring of the report we just launched is just an indication that coordinated execution would take us towards the Africa we want. In a special way, allow me at this point to thank the chairperson of ARFSD 12 Mauritius for the consistent messaging of amplifying the continental agenda. The key coordinating milestones was the development of 5 tools and the approval of the technical working group, which is a diverse team made up of the UN structure, technical experts, and the AU technical expert, AFDB, to be able to co-create at planning and programming so that we land jointly at member states. Allow me at this stage to say the implementers of the 2 agendas, the joint implementation, and therefore the better execution of the continentals and the global strategy are our member states. I want to give 3 hints of what member states need to be conscious of. Member states need to be conscious of the line of sight that we have, if I may cite it bottom up, the sub-national plans, the national development plans, the regional plans. And in this conversation, regional plans, we are talking about our southern, not regions as in Africa, Asia. So for the Africa we want, that we set by the vision, need to be a force rocker in the global arena. For us to showcase of it at the HLPF, first we must take care of the national plans, the sub-national plans, the regional plans, and in that way, our presence in the global arena will be defined. The second messaging is that we need a balance where, as we celebrate the presentation of the VNRs at the stage, we also reflect into how many of us reported to the AU. Are we having instances of where a member state would come and present at global level, but at continental level we are not receiving the report? That is one area of concern. The other area of concern is that inclusivity, if indeed the agenda is to be driven by its own citizens, with the demographic dividends that we talk about. Youth, are they present? Women, are they present? Are we taking care of our overall landscape, including our governance landscape? Our leaders showing up with the excellence that we need, with the acceleration that we need? Lastly, allow me to say that member states should be conscious of the toolbox that we have in coordinating them. Our member states aligned at ministerial level. Does one ministry know the thematic area, the ratifications that are still outstanding from them? I want to give an example of our AFCFTA. AFCFTA is one out of the 15 flagship projects. We celebrate it alone, but it has to coexist or be balanced with other flagship projects. Free movement of people. While we are still building infrastructure, in Africa, people move with goods, goods move with people. So if 54 member states have ratified AFCFTA, but not ratified free movement of people, only 7 have. It means the gains of what we agree around AFCFTA will never be realized until all other flagship projects are invested upon and well executed. I think I've exceeded my time, but I just wanted to give a view and weight to member states that the Agenda 2063 and the UN SDGs are not competing. We need to have a balance at Parliament where the Parliamentary Committee on SDGs is also taking care of Agenda 2063. To the UN, we are saying the first 10-year evaluation said to us, we need to exploit the geographic presence of the UN in our member states, which is far greater than the AU presence. And the offices of the UN are supposed to serve jointly the mandates of Agenda 2063 for our continental strategy to be the behind-scene force that will showcase at global level. Thank you very much.
thank you very much, my sister Botho, for having framed so comprehensively the work that is before us. And I will very shortly hand over to my dear friend and colleague Charles Wangadia for his more detailed presentation. But I would just like my colleagues to present a very brief slide on our screen to demonstrate the importance of some of the work that we are undertaking jointly together in terms of the African Union Commission and the United Nations system. We have sought to reflect all of the voluntary national reviews by different African countries, and this tool will be available for all countries to consult very, very soon. And in particular, what we are demonstrating through this tool is, and to echo the remarks of all of the previous senior speakers, in terms of how African countries are being ambitious, but also realistic. And if we can perhaps look at a particular country example, and we can see that we're looking at Tanzania, we will see that in that context, we see the progress that a country such as Tanzania has made. We sometimes underestimate the progress that is actually happening. If we look at countries such as Tanzania, rapid increase in terms of electricity access. There is also increased water access, a focus on energy security as an engine of growth. There is a connectivity revolution, which is both in terms of physical infrastructure and digital infrastructure, while there is also a commitment to reshaping the economic geography to be able to build on the hub opportunities, while looking at the climate resilience pathway. But critically, one of the factors that needs the most attention is fiscal self-reliance. And this is the way in which African countries can mobilize domestic resources, particularly because what we are seeing is that African countries broadly, apart from those in conflict, are seeing improved access, water, sanitation, energy, education. But in many instances, this is being driven by debt spending. Now, what this means is that the progress towards Agenda 2063 and Agenda 2030 is sustained, but structural economic transformation has not yet kept pace. And this is and we see this in the voluntary national reviews. And if we can just scroll down to just give you this very quick, what we have also mapped is the priorities that have been reflected in the voluntary national reviews, just using again Tanzania as the example. You see a very good identification of the key issues, taking a whole of nation plus approach. These are the number of times they are mentioned in the voluntary national reviews, a focus on fiscal self-reliance and a focus on climate resilience. So thank you very much to my colleagues for having demonstrated this, and we will share this with all countries as a tool for advocating further on the priorities for African countries. With that brief introduction, allow me to now go to Charles. And Charles, if you can be as brief as possible to make your presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Director Adam, and thank you very much, Director Botho. I will try as much as possible to be very brief, since we already have the presentation and the discuss. I'm trying to project it on the screen. Okay, all right. Good morning, distinguished ministers, excellencies, and partners. It's my pleasure on behalf of the AUC, UNECA, and FDB to present the key highlights of the 2026 Africa Sustainable Development Report. The report, like I mentioned, has been a joint effort by UNECA, AUC, and FDB. So it's basically yes, there we are. Sorry about that. So, like I mentioned earlier, it's a joint effort of the four institutions. The overview of the report basically is highlighting Africa's macro and economic development context, and then the insights on the 5 SDGs that are under review, and then insights on shaping African development. In terms of context, ladies and gentlemen, development of the continent is constrained by financial gaps, weak institutional capacity, economic and climate shocks, and of course the other aspect that we have to take into consideration is the fact that the prolonged conflict that are taking place on globally could affect Africa's development trajectory, depending on the level of import dependence, exposure to Middle East and global markets, and then the geopolitical and religious affiliations. So there is therefore need to have a shift moving beyond reactive and episodic recovery towards equitable, innovative, resilience, and coordinated long-term transformation. When it comes to a quick look into progress of the the SDGs in 2025, we notice that Africa is progressing in 12 out of the 17 SDGs. 9 out of these 17 goals show 53% improvement in 2025 compared to 2024. Regression is witnessed in SDGs 7, 11, 12, 13, and 15. And of course, data availability remains a challenge in terms of monitoring the SDGs. For the SDG on ensuring the availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all, one of the key insights is that growing pressure from population growth, urbanization, and climate-related shocks is very clear. We have seen progress in access to basic drinking water, which is masking slow gains in safely managed services. The levers for accelerating progress here, we are looking at the elevated political focus on water and sanitation, which has high impact on the sector. And we also notice the African Union Africa Investment Platform, which is estimated to have around between 10 to 12 billion in terms of commitments annually. When you look at sanitation, we see that in 2025, safely managed sanitation stood at 24%, and in 2023, it stood at 30% globally. And the consequences of this is that we see that around 650 million people in Africa are without basic sanitation services. Open defecation still persists in that area. When it comes to safely managed drinking water, we see that access to safely managed drinking water stands globally at more than 70%, but when it comes to Africa, you see it in 2015 it's at 33%, 2023 it is at 36%. So basically, in terms of water quality, treatment, and efficiency, we are lagging behind at Africa because domestic wastewater that is safely treated still stands at only 33%. In terms of ensuring access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all, we see that energy access and generation gaps constrain social services and productive sectors. We also see that rural areas are significantly underserved, and the levers for accelerating progress here, we are looking at energy investments, which demonstrate how policy and partnerships are driving Africa's energy transition. We also have a few examples here, like for example, Kenya has expanded geothermal energy in the Rift Valley. Morocco with the new solar complex. Ethiopia and Rwanda have decentralized solar mini-grids and off-grid systems for rural electrification. When it comes to access to electricity, we see that there is a very big gap. Global electricity access has increased from 87% in 2015 to 92% in 2023. When it comes to Africa, the progress has been modest. We only noticed 46% increase in 2015, and for 2023 it stands at 53%. So we see that really there is very slow movement in access to electricity. And here we also notice that nearly half of Africa's population still lacks access to electricity. When it comes to clean cooking, this one is also critically still standing low. With access to clean fuels, technologies for cooking, 2023 only standing at 34%. And this also has an impact on health. Household air pollution is causing an estimated 400,000 premature deaths annually. When it comes to building resilience, infrastructure, promoting inclusive, sustainable industrialization, and fostering innovation.
Charles, I'm sorry, because of the time, I suggest if you can try to wrap it up in about 2 minutes.
Yeah, we also see very little progress in terms of this SDG with connectivity, digital connectivity, which is actually standing out with 92.8% of the African population now being in position to access connectivity. When it comes to making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, and resilient and sustainable, we also see that there is little progress that is taking place here. So strengthening the means of implementing and repatriating global partnerships, we see that domestic resource mobilization in terms of tax GDP ratio for Africa stands at 16%. The OECD is standing at more than 35%. In conclusion, the insights that are shaping Africa's sustainable development future are highlighted here. We are saying that transformational integrated action is essential to close Africa's SDG implementation gap, and closing the financing gap is a prerequisite for accelerating progress. Regional cooperation offers a powerful accelerator for structural transformation. Investment in advancing policy and plan implementation is crucial. Scaled up and better alignment, international finance is critical to sustaining development gains, and investing in data, institutions, and inclusive governance underpins effective implementation. With that, thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wangalia, for the technical presentation. Excellencies, we are now getting to the part of interactive interventions by excellencies. Allow me to announce that we have French and English interpretation if you need the services. The rules of the game is that as we invite speakers, we are limiting interventions to 4 to 5 minutes. Regrettably, we would not want to do that to our ministers. We also, from the African perspective, to say that kids are not supposed to stop an adult on the floor speaking, so we believe that that consideration would dictate how we progress. We, in the overall, ministers would like to hear the best practices from your specific country, the common challenges, the transformative concrete actions that have demonstrated. This is an indoor peer learning engagement that everyone who takes the floor should be able to share what the other can take for a betterment of the execution of both agendas. A number of us are representing the VNRs during this HLPF. We will give priorities to countries looking at their next meetings and so forth. At this stage, excellencies, allow me to invite to the floor His Excellency Professor Nkumbo, Minister of State, President's Office, Planning and Investment of Tanzania. So, Excellency, we have consistently, as Tanzania, demonstrated strong national ownership of the sustainable development through integration of the SDG into national planning. And your country's emphasis on inclusive growth, infrastructure, and other areas really shows that you are attempting to accelerate both Agendas 2030 and Agenda 2063. Please share with us the key lessons learned and the challenges encountered, and how your country prioritizes accelerating the implementation for the sustainable development goals and inherently the Agenda 2063. I give you the floor, Excellency.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and colleagues, ministers, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to commend the African the Commission, NEC, UNDP, all partners for convening this very important meeting. For Tanzania, one of our most valuable experience has been the preparation of 3 voluntary national reviews. The first national review enables us to introduce the SDGs into our national development planning frameworks, and the second one strengthened institutional coordination and stakeholder engagement, and our third one, which we presented yesterday, represents a transition from reporting progress to accelerating implementation towards 2030, while simultaneously laying the foundation for Tanzania Development National Vision and the 5-year development plan. From experience, I wish to highlight 5 main lessons that we can share with our colleagues. Firstly, is the institutional ownership. Institutional ownership is essential. The VNR should never be viewed as a UN reporting exercise. In Tanzania, it has been treated as a national development management tool. Our National Planning Commission coordinated the process, bringing together various government and non-state actors, including government ministries, local government authorities, the National Bureau of Statistics, parliaments, DPs, academia, civil society, and the private sector. So this whole government approach and whole society approach strengthened our national ownership and ensured that the findings directly informed our planning and our budgeting processes. Secondly, integrating the SDGs into national planning makes implementation easier. Rather than implementing the SDGs separately, Tanzania mainstreamed them into our national development architecture. Our VNR is fully aligned with our national development vision and our 5-year development plan, ensuring that the SDG priorities are reflected in sectoral plans, public investment programs, and annual budgets. Thirdly, broad stakeholder participation improves both quality and accountability. Compared to our previous VNRs, the 2026 VNR review involved significantly broader consultations. For example, we engaged government institutions, we were able to involve local government authorities, 185 of them, over 800 civil society organizations, more than 1,000 private sector companies, youth organizations, academia, and the UN system, of course. This ensured that the report reflected the experiences of citizens rather than just a government. Fourthly, investing in national statistics systems is indispensable. One clear lesson here is that the various cycles depends very much on good data, so evidence is key here. Fifthly, VNR should become an implementation instrument, and that the VNR is not just a report, but its value lies in how government use the findings to improve policies. The challenges that we see, some of them, first, for example, despite the improvement that we see, data gaps remain a real challenge. And secondly, coordinating multiple institutions in government and private sector also remains quite a challenge, both technically and financially. Thirdly, capacities across local government remain even for a country bigger than ours, with more than 108 local government authorities. Coordination becomes a big issue, especially when it comes to quality of data. Fourthly, the global shock that we all know also presents as a very big challenge. And fifthly, as all of us have pointed out here, is the question of the financing.